Eli, we're done. Can you make sure you do the punk rock one?
Let's go!
Hello, welcome back, family. Welcome back to the Primas podcast. I am Cindy. What's up, everybody? Jessica, what's up, Prima?
Hey, Prima, how's it going? Week 2, and this topic is, I'm excited for this week's topic. Let's just jump in it. No intro. It's pissing me off. It's like,
Jess, when are you not excited about any of these topics? That's what I want to know.
Okay, so I guess we're going to just get into it. So, we are living in a crazy time, and we wanted to talk about this last week, but we had a premeditated topic. Is that how you say it? Okay. Because I always try to use words last minute. I don't know why my brain does that. That I'm like, Cindy, you don't know that word that well. Anyways, so basically we're talking about the Trump supporters going into the Capitol building and how that said a lot about where we are, how it said a lot about race in this time, how just a few months back the Black Lives Matter movement was out in the streets, not just in the United States, but it was, all over, because we were fighting back. I wasn't in the streets, but I was still very much on the Black Lives Matter movement, where I see the injustice in law enforcement. We've been seeing it. And we jumped on that topic with Eunices Hernandez, which I want to plug into this resource, because I'm pretty sure she's going to be doing a lot of work right now. She always is, on police reform. And we talked a lot about defunding the police and how, those budgets are not really doing our communities and communities of color any justice. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Especially what, Cindy? Because you froze for a second.
Can you guys hear me now?
Now we can. But you said especially what?
Especially the Black community. Was that clear?
yeah.
It didn't have the excitement when you said it the first time. You just say,
All right, let me just...
Yeah, so
to
to just go off of what Cindy was saying, that's exactly what we're talking about. This isolated event that happened a week ago, where people are it just reminds us that when people say, oh, it's not happening, it's not relevant, racism doesn't exist, or white privilege isn't a thing, And a reminder was just, even though we had been seeing it with the Black Lives Matter protests, with other movements in our lifetime, we've seen that. But on Wednesday was just a rude awakening to all those who kind of voted for him. How, I don't understand how half the nation voted for someone who wanted this man to be in office when he condoned that behavior. When Black Lives Matter protests were doing it, they were rioters, they were thugs, they were this and that. But when his supporters did it, it was an act of patriotism. And that's when I'm just like, white privilege is a thing. And I really want to talk about it. And there's a lot, it's a huge umbrella. I understand that, but specifically, I want to deconstruct that isolated incident that happened on Wednesday, and let's just pull back the layers. And from our interpretation, like me and Cindy discussed it when we debriefed earlier. And again, guys, we have our own unique perspective on how we view the lens. And I really want to just discuss Wednesday's, what had happened when they stormed the Capitol.
Just so our listeners know, we know this is 2 weeks later when y'all will be listening to this, but still want to get into the conversation. Thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, we let me know if I get broken up again. But so I think from the beginning of Trump's presidency, the moment that, for me, I'm already super, I kind of think for myself. I don't ever really, I take from other people's opinions and then I form my own, my own idea. But when he was able to become president after all of this, how unprofessional and how sexist he was, and he was just kind of this rich white man, it was damn, we're living in a time where that person gets to be president. People feel that person is a good example and role model. And I got super turned off right away from politics. I already was super turned off from politics and government. Read 1984. But you know, he just was able to get away with a lot before he actually became the president, and then all the way after. He's just I don't understand how that happened. So everything leading up to this, it's just a big joke, you know, and I hate to say it because when me and Jess were talking about this, it's not a bash on Republicans, it's not a bash on Democrats. I know that not every Republican is bad and ignorant and racist. I know that not every Democrat is great and perfect. So this isn't about us picking a side. This is about us observing the behavior and then explaining kind of like what leadership is and the lack thereof. Because how did this man do this? How did this man get in a position where he was able to lead, you know, a country such as the United States, where the whole world thinks we're so progressive? And the United States has provided a lot of freedom to a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that we can't point out the injustices, you know, because a lot of people, like some of my cousins in Mexico, are like, yeah, but you guys get to do this and that, and it doesn't compare to our government. I get it, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't call it out so that we can start working on solutions. And if we just say, no, we're fine, we're great, everything's great over here, we get to eat cheap food and die from it eventually, and it's all fun and games, and it's like, it's not fun and games. And this whole situation just reminded me of the song that Childish Gambino did a few years ago, This Is America, where we're just so interested in the new trend and dancing and in looking good and in everything that's going on. And then someone gets killed, and then we're back to like recording ourselves again the next day, and just we've gotten so used to it. So yeah, that's where I'm at with this. I'm like, I'm not surprised, but it was a great example of how white people can storm 4 layers of security. And we're getting more information. Like Eli mentioned, this is 2 weeks later. I wish we could have done it sooner, but that was like our first day coming back. So we already had a topic. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we're
This is
discussing it
America.
this week. And I know I agree, Cindy, we're not the most political advocates out there, but ever since like the Black Lives Matter protests had started, I think that's what hit me and wanted me to become a little bit more educated on my propositions and my local government and so forth. So I do believe when we stand together, like our generation, our age group of people can make a difference. And I think more than ever, not more than ever, I guess I'm just starting to see it, that regardless, when people say, oh, well, that's a thing of the past, like that's not prevalent in our society today, or this is the way the system has always been, so we're just going to inherit all these. And I feel like right now there's a big uproar and people are making a difference, you know? And like I said, so last March, it sparked it within me. And I've been able to vote for the last 12 years, but where I cannot honestly say, where I read every proposition, what was on the ballot this November, where I've been reading on people who are going to make a difference within my community, you know, because like I've been saying, all I can control is myself and my voice, and I want to continue to do so. So I don't believe in a lot of these systems. I don't believe in a lot of these authorities, and I strongly support like defunding the police more now than ever, you know? And even on Wednesday, a lot of these security officers were taking pictures with them. And I saw a lot of videos where the officers were waving their hands like, come on in, guys. And I'm like, no, we need to stop this. We need to make a change and continue to educate ourselves. Like you're always saying, Prima, the internet is at the palm of our hands, you know? Let's use it. Let's utilize it and make ourselves aware of what's going on, you know? Because I do want to like make a difference. I do want to change things that no longer worked for the last 300 years, you know? And that's where I'm at, because I know there's been many activists like doing this a lot longer. They're like, okay, finally you're woke, you know? And I feel like that's it. Like I'm barely coming to light with it, you know? I was in a little bubble and I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to be socially conscious of my environment and my community and my actions towards it. And I just don't want to be silent.
I think one cool observation that I made during 2020 is that a lot of people use their social, I mean, everything got amplified. You know, our social media behavior, people are so different behind their phone. They're so, you know, everyone is picking a side, and that's very groupthink of us. That's a very natural human behavior, is that we're social beings and we do pick a side. No matter, there's billions of sides. But if you pick a side, or if someone agrees with you, that feels better to us. And so we're just more inclined to have that person's back, support the person, follow the person, and vice versa. I saw a lot of people on Instagram and on social media saying, like, if you guys are supporting this, this, and that, don't follow me, right? And like everybody just got, I mean, it was very clear what side they were going on. When the pandemic had first started, there was new news every single other day, not every week. Every single other day, there was a new thing. And everybody was like, oh, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to defend this to the death. I'm going to defend this to the death. And I was just like, it was an amazing time, because that hasn't happened, at least in our time, where we're like mature enough to be like, what's going on, right? Like now we can think for ourselves. Now we can understand. We're in our 30s. We have kind of like, we've been in the life for a few years.
Yeah, we have more
I guess we're a little bit
experience
more
under our belt.
experience. Mm-hmm. And we can compare a little bit more.
Random question. Is it comparable? Because I'm wondering how much, I feel like you're saying more mature now, and I feel like back then it was a more mature thing, back in the civil rights movement. And so I'm wondering.
No, I'm saying person, like I'm more mature.
Or just the way, not I didn't mean you, but I don't know if I misheard, but the way you said a lot of more people were, you said you haven't seen this since it happened, I'm assuming back in the Civil War, I mean, not the civil rights movement.
No, I'm comparing the technology use. Like we nothing this crazy has happened, like a pandemic, where people were really, their only form of expression for a lot of us was through social media. And I mean, I just know people that are very brave and aggressive on social media, that I'm like, this is not who you really are in real life. You wouldn't say this to my face. I know you wouldn't. And 2020, I feel, has given a rise to that, where people behind their phones, they take on this personality and then they push it. But like I said, my observation is someone picks whatever side coincides with them and makes them feel most comfortable with them, and they say, yep, I'm riding with this side. And whoever thinks differently, you're the bad guy. And that's what I'm talking about. That I noticed a lot of people,
Cancel culture.
the cancel culture, you know, like just a lot of people are very different on their social media. And 2020 exposed that, because we were all kind of like inside, right? Like we were all just, well, how else were we supposed to express ourselves? And so we saw a lot, you know, I love the Black Lives Matter movement. When all of that happened, it was because of social media. You know, now people are able to, it's not just word of mouth of the police officers. It's, no, we saw you, we recorded you kill this man. Rest in peace, George Floyd, right? We just have more, you know, technology has made a lot of advances where it's really not your word anymore. And before, that's what it was. It was like, it's your word against mine. If you have authority, if you're white, if you're a white man, if you have money, if you have resources, that's who's going to win, right? In the battle of, well, this person seemed suspicious because they had their hand in their pocket, so we shot and killed him. Where we just saw in the Capitol, you know, a lot of law enforcement was a part of everything, because there's no way. You know, everybody, it was an organized situation. I'm sure there's more information going to come out of it, but everybody that even stormed the Capitol, they weren't afraid. They were smiling. They were in great moods. They weren't covering their face. I mean, all of that behavior lets you know that that's white privilege. That's knowing, like, you're not going to do anything to me. It doesn't even cross their mind that someone's going to do anything to them, because why would they? They've all their lives, and I'm not talking about all white people. I know there's a lot of white people that are advocates for the movement, for Black Lives Matter. I'm talking specifically. What's up?
Oh, they're called allies. That's what that's the name they've been given.
Okay, allies. So, you know, I don't want to be insensitive and say like it's all white people. Absolutely not. But we know what this power and control we're talking about. It's historical. The world is based around, you know, rich and powerful white men. This country was built off of our 4 founding fathers. That's so weird to say. our white men who owned slaves. And so like all of this the system was built off of that idea, that it's powerful. It's from the perspective of powerful white men. And so what I saw when I saw like the pictures and the videos and all that stuff going on, I was like, yeah, that's white privilege. That's knowing that you can do whatever you want in these very important buildings and nothing's going to happen to you. You get to steal stuff, you get to sit on people's desks, you get to go through their emails, you get to touch their stuff, and it doesn't matter. And the FBI now is saying, we need your help, right, to like identify these people. When a black kid could be walking down the street, he has his hands in his pocket, and the police can say, he was a suspect. We got word, sorry, we messed up. With Breonna Taylor, the cops that killed her, it was an accident, right? The situation was like, oh, they messed up. Somebody gave them the wrong order. They went into the wrong house. It doesn't matter. Nobody was held accountable. And then you start seeing the correlation. It's white men in power. Yeah.
Yeah, Prima. And when all this stuff was happening, there was a meme that really stood out to me. It said, we're not asking you to shoot them, but don't shoot us like you don't shoot them. And that struck like an emotional chord for me because it's so true. Based off the color of your skin, you're still going to be identified as the enemy, as a criminal, as Trump continuously says, about Black and brown people. Oh, we're criminals, we're thugs, we're this, we're that. But yet, white people could be doing the exact same thing and they're supporters, they're patriotic, they love America. And I want to change it. I don't want to just say, okay, well, that's just how it is. That's just how things are going to be, There has to be change. And again, I know we're not very political, but with these propositions, I believe there's change, Like there was a proposition here in LA where felons didn't have a right to vote, even though they did their time and they came out, they still weren't ever allowed because it's on their criminal record. So we passed it here in LA where now they're able to vote. And it's like still, even out of the system, we're still suppressing so many people. And I want there to be change. And on Wednesday, if that didn't convince you enough, then I don't know. We're just going to have to keep trying our hardest to wake people up. You're in Mimi's time too long.
I had a random question here. And clear that throat and I'll delete that later. But like as Latinos, Cindy, you were mentioning earlier, I don't know if you were like reading some comments on some social media platform, because you said some of our cousins from Mexico, or I don't even know if that's what you said, but you said people from Mexico are having like some disagreements on some of the stuff that we're dealing with. Maybe that's like cultural differences or something, because even though we're Mexican American and we have a lot of family in Mexico, maybe we see things differently because of how they have it over there. But what do you think our role as Latinos in this? Obviously, we also Latinos want these rights and just as equal rights. But obviously, I guess it's more like the Black Lives Matter movement. They're the ones being drastically affected, and it's obvious. And there's a lot of Latinos who can be on the Trump side of things, and also just have a conservative view on a lot of things, even maybe their views towards the African American community. So, what do you think y'all roles as Latinas is in this movement? And I'm aiming more specifically towards, how there's a lot of already racism, colorism in the Latino community, like that exists in the Latino community. Like, I don't know what the terms are for it, but like Afro Latinos compared to more fair skinned Latinos, that's what they call it, and discrimination even just against their own. So I wonder, what do you think the Latino role is, or where Latinos stand in this? Because I feel like they're just in the middle and kind of on both sides of the situation.
I think it's our responsibility as a minority group, because I think Mexicans, I can't speak for all Latinos, I can only speak from my perspective growing up in East LA, Northeast LA specifically, in the 90s. And our influence was very much, I heard a lot of, our older generations be very ignorant and racist towards Black people. And so the newer generations, as much cross culture we took, especially in LA, like the cholos, were inspired a lot by, you know, the lowrider culture and the music and the oldies, which were all Black artists, and then a lot of like old school gangsters, and still kind of a little bit with, like, you can see it with like Snoop Dogg and stuff, how they'll say it, they were very much influenced by the cholo culture as well. So growing up in that situation, I would say that I'm an ally, and anytime my family wants to have these conversations, as hard as they are, I have to welcome a very safe space to have those conversations, which I have a lot with my tia Leti. Shout out to her, because she didn't get it, and I don't know if she does or not, and that's not my business. But she was like, well, I don't understand why all lives don't matter, right? And then, like, you know, we had that conversation, but it was back and forth. And I just remember my responsibility was, I'm just trying to spread light and love. And I just told her my side of it and let her go with whatever she wanted. I wasn't confrontational. I wasn't like, I just kind of gave her my opinion, and we kept talking about it. And so I think for us, it's important that we continue to have these conversations, as uncomfortable as they are. It's better to put a name and a word and a sentence, right, to these issues, so that we can come up with solutions. I don't know how she left or what she thinks now, but I know that I felt good that I didn't provoke negativity in her. I didn't say, that's ignorant of you, you shouldn't, blah, 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 blah. You know, I didn't give her that energy that closed her down. So now, and this is one example, right? But like, she knows that she can come to me with any topic, as weird as it might be. She knows my stance on stuff because I'm very vocal about it, especially with my family. And she knows that it's not going to be disrespectful just because we disagree. So I think that's our responsibility, is to open up a safe space of conversation for these things. If our older generations are saying ignorant things, it's saying, nah, that's not cool. Like, don't say that in front of me. That's not okay. If you want to think that way, I can't control you, but don't do that around us. Or it's not funny to me, it's not a joke. Or you know, there's just people that will say certain things, and you're just like, don't you listen to hip hop? Don't you rock Jordan? Don't you this? Don't you that? And it's like, where do you think this came from? This came from the Black culture. It's okay. You know, it's okay that you respect Jordan, and we're like super hardcore into like hip hop and R&B, but also at the same time recognize that we're all beautiful. And at the same time, it's very obvious that the darker skin you are in this world, not just in the United States, in Mexico as well. Like you said, a lot of Latinos, especially the lighter skin Latinos, like Cubans, like the South American, like Colombians, like a lot of them they're more outspoken racist, right? They're more proud to be Republican and conservative, especially like in Miami, like in Florida. I heard a lot, like I'm sorry, when they voted, a lot of the Latinos in Florida voted Republican, right? And it's just like, who are the Latinos in Florida? Not that there's no Mexicans, but a lot of them are Cuban. And so, yeah, this issue is around the world. Like, the darker skin you are, the more unfairly treated you will be. And that's because we've been conditioned from the beginning of time. I shouldn't say the beginning of time, because I don't know what the beginning of time is, but I'm talking about the Caucasus Mountains and Caucasoids, and how the races started to separate each other. And I mean, I'm not going to go into this huge thing. There's a lot of research on it, and how like races became divided, and then how, you know, the dominant race became the white race. And we've all been conditioned to hate darker colored skin, to hate, you know, we think it's more beautiful to be light skinned. Although right now everyone's switching it up, right? And everybody wants to now be, we're now embracing, and I think it's because of the exposure that technology has given us, is we're embracing women of color. And now white women want to be Black, right? And then they fall somewhere in between where they end up looking Latina or like biracial. But yeah, I think there's just, that's crazy, you know, that we're still dealing with that. And sorry, I know I'm going off on a rant real quick.
Yeah.
My mom.
I was just going to say, to answer Eloy's question, Cindy, so you can stop talking for 10 minutes. Just kidding. To answer your question, Eloy, I would also kind of like roll off of that. Our voice in this movement is education, you know, because I'm still learning things. Like I said, it wasn't that it until last March, it was just like whatever subject to me, you know, it didn't directly affect me. And I think that's a lot of people's mindset. If it's not directly affecting you, your community or your bubble, then why are you going to advocate for something like that? And now that I'm getting a little older, I'm raising a daughter. I need to be more consciously social of my environment. So there's people in our society, within our own community, that it's just a proven fact. Like, there's so many studies done that show the darker complexion you are to a lighter skinned person, you're going to get a harsher sentence in our criminal justice system. Isn't that crazy? Like, and that's a topic we're going to talk about. I wanted to talk about later on, but just like to touch the waters of that, two people are going to commit the same crime. But yet, if you're darker skin complected compared to like a lighter skin, the lighter skin is either going to get a slap on the wrist or like probation, as well as like the darker skin person's for sure going to get like a harsher sentence. And that's what I want to do. That's what I want to wake people up to it. Because like you said, Cindy, earlier, people are conditioned subconsciously. They don't know why we're only taught certain things in our elementary school level, you know, and I'm a product of Valley USD, which I didn't learn anything. Why did it take until me going to college where I had to pay for a higher education for me to get this knowledge? We should be educating our kids at a younger age. Why the fuck did I take geometry? Where is that ever needed in my adult life? When we could be talking about culture, where we could talk about difference of cultures, where we could just be educating our kids in a different way. So I think it's just all about education and being an advocate. Whether it's affecting you directly or not, you're part of a community. And there's so many theorists in psychology like Vygotsky that talk about your community. Whether it affects you directly or not, you need to like protect our community, you know? And I'm not just talking about the Latinos. I'm talking about everyone, your neighbor, your coworker, all these environments that you're in your school environments. You just don't have to be nice to people in those environments, you know? It's about taking that home with you and showing your kids that, because like Cindy said last week, our kids are watching us and it's all like hate is learned behavior, you know? And that's our voice, you know? Our daughters are, well, at least I hope, are not going to be little assholes running around, you know?
Yes. I hope not, huh? I think
Fingers crossed on that one.
Fingers crossed that our kids are not little a-holes.
But we're ready to drop them if they are. Like, all right, bro, we're blood, but you didn't make it.
I will never talk to you again.
Y'all think y'all are really getting into those conversations? I'm genuinely curious. Like, I'm sure Cindy with my mom, because you'll have that conversation in front of me when I go visit on my vacation. But like, and I'm not, I guess Cindy, because that's like, and then my mom's your only friend, so I can only imagine you having that talk with her. But just surrounded by more people, people around you in a state with people, like, are you having those conversations? Because I know I'm someone who just keeps to myself because I don't want to have those conversations with people. So I'm like, some people are ignorant, and I'm like, I'm not going to try to convince these people. And I kind of just become more of a loner. I'm like, I don't want to deal with having to try to convince people of their ignorance. And that's why I'm curious, I guess, from someone who converses with more random people than I do. And you have a job where I'm sure, I don't know if you're dealing with more people in that situation as well, because I know I had my fair share of racially charged moments at work.
Yeah, I definitely am. And as Cindy said, I make it an open space. I try not to be that argumentative. I'm not trying to get them to see my perspective. I just want to make it or give them different ideas to think about. And then that's where it's an open dialogue. It's a safe space where we can have different perspectives, but it's just like a bigger understanding. Then I start questioning them because I'm a psych major and I know how to like question it a certain way where I'm not attacking them, but I question them. I'm like, okay, so then if you believe this, then like, why do you believe that? Or then this and that. And then it stumps them, you know, because I feel like a lot of times when I'm in these dialogues with people who have different opinions.
Is that a good approach? I'm curious. If you're stumping them, aren't you kind of like sort of shocking them? And I feel like when you have that, people don't really want to converse because it's like, whoa, like now what do you, it sounds like, I'm curious.
So stumping them is like, so I'm asking them a question and I provoke them to think and not just repeat something that they saw. So I'm getting them to say something about their belief. Okay, well, if you believe this, then let me ask you about that. And I'm saying it in like a calm collective tone, you know, where it's not defensive, where I'm not going to provoke an argument, where I'm watching my body language. All this I'm taking into account when I am having these conversations with people who have different opinions of what I believe in. And again, my goal at the end is not to get them to agree with me, but hey, let's have an open dialogue and talk about things. Why does it have to get escalated? You know, why can't we listen to each other? And I think that's a bigger statement than me trying to get them to agree to me. And I think that's a lot of people's perspectives when I see them talking, when I see them disagreeing with me. And Cindy have disagreements, believe it or not, Eloy, and we communicate them. You know, we put into practice what we believe. And I think it is very successful because, I mean, at least that I know of, I don't have very many enemies. I don't have a lot of people that really hate me. I can maybe like think of 5 off the top of my hand. Psych.
Oh, just 5.
Just 5. But no, to be honest, that's exactly my approach. And I do see a lot of people, and there's a lot of people who don't even agree with the work I do, which is reaching out to the homeless population. And there I am advocating for that. Like, okay, well, you know, and I work in Santa Monica, so there is a lot of white rich people out there. And I'm like, okay, well, here's my card. And there's some people who are open for that dialogue, but then there are other people who I just shut it down because I can tell by their body language, by their tone of voice, that they're not ready to hear opposing beliefs. And those people I don't even entertain my time with because there's no point. You know what I mean? Like, I like conversating. I like hearing other people's thoughts and their beliefs and why they think the way they do, you know? So it's pretty, I would say it's interesting. I've learned that. I mean, ever since I started going to school, I try to approach people like that, where I don't attack them, where I don't make them feel defensive. And I think it's hard because I feel myself sometimes, you know, it takes a lot of practice and patience. Like, look at my Raider episode, you know, like I clearly have a problem with authority and I realized that early and I never understood why, you know, but all my relationships with cops have always been bad. You know, like all the times they impounded my car, all the times they would pull me over. It's just a bunch of things, you know, and then after reading all those studies, like the Stanford experiment and a lot of other studies that were done with authority, you know. So my approach is never to make anyone seem belittle or like they're wrong in their belief, but just I already said it. So that's where I'm at. Does that answer your question, Eloy? Were you even listening?
You covered a lot.
He's going to make our parts like a synthesized version of it on the actual audio.
I'm only going to bring up the part when you said a Raider game, and then I'm going to bring back the drunk footage. You're just a doorman.
And that was your answer. Yeah, we're not really used to. No, mommy, can you take that over there because it's too loud? Peace.
Another classic piece interruption.
Can you take it in the bed, my love? What I was gonna say is that no one is ever taught to have those types of conversations. So I think we understand that when people get defensive or if we say an opposing view, however big or small, people get into fight or flight mode. And like Jessica said, when we recognize that in people, there's no reason to have a conversation anymore because this person is no longer operating from like a calm place. And if you can recognize that, like with me and my tia, like I just made sure that she knew I'm not mad. This is you're right too. I can understand how you came to your perspective. I can see how you think this way, but I think this way. And that's okay. We're different. We grew up in different times. We grew up with, your older generations tend to be more on the all lives matter side. I get it. There's more closed-mindedness. There's more just more conservative views, even for Mexicans and Latinos. So yeah, I think that's cool because once we like see ego come in, I don't like to either. I don't shut down, but I'm like, there's no reason. I'm not going back and forth with you. That's a waste. For what? It just for us to like prove, no, I'm going to hurt your feelings and your ego more. Like, I don't.
Then it gets personal. So we just shut it down.
Yeah, there's like no more solutions at that point. So it's like, oh, you just want to go back and forth. Like, I'm not interested in wasting my time. I don't want to waste your time. So yeah, ego.
You got to check it.
Gotta check it. So I wanted to talk a lot about like the solutions part of it. Elo, you kind of asked us like as Latinos, what can we do? And we said like not just as Latinos, but as people who are allies to the movement of justice, right? Because there's a lot of injustice going on, and it's not right now. It's Black Lives Matter, right? But for a long time, also women. Women. Like I wanted to bring this up real quick. In this episode, like this is America, where a lot of minorities get picked on. A lot of minorities get tested on. Like we're the guinea pigs. In ICE detention centers, for example, right now, there's like this big thing going around that women are getting forced hysterectomies, which is basically like sterilization, right? I don't know how they're doing it. These are things that we're hearing. There's not too much information that comes out of it, but a lot of people have said, and this isn't the first time that women are getting sterilized without their full consent. They either don't know what's going on, they're coerced into doing it, they're deceived into doing it, they don't really know what's going on. Back in the 1960s, there was a study from the United States done in Puerto Rico to the women of Puerto Rico, and they were being sterilized for population control. It wasn't done to American women. It was done to women in Puerto Rico at the time. Well, obviously, United States still has kind of control over there. And then now it's in ICE detention centers, and it's also been done in the past with female inmates that are incarcerated. And who are the people that are incarcerated? Who is in Puerto Rico? Who is in ICE detention centers? It's the majority of people is minorities. It's minority women. And so when we have these conversations about that, what they did, and about white supremacy and white privilege, it's not just police brutality. That's a huge part. But my focus, for example, has been food justice. And there's a lot of racial inequity in food justice and the way that we eat and the way that we've been conditioned and programmed to eat. The fact that McDonald's, Coca-Cola, a lot of the products that we consume on a regular basis are legal, that cause us cancer and that causes diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. No one really talks about that with food, right? But all of these injustices are all across the board. It's systemic. It's not just with law enforcement. It's not just with food. It's also with the medical system. And I think for me personally, that's why I've had so many trust issues, not just with myself and my people, the people around me, but with the systems, because I'm like, no, after you study all of the history and you kind of think of what's going on right now, and it's still going on right now, it's pretty crazy to see, because I don't understand how humans can still behave that way, like how we can be so cold-hearted. And hate is learned. So it doesn't mean it can't be unlearned.
Another solution that I wanted to add was, be mindful. As I said earlier, a lot of people I hear say, oh, like, I can't believe it's happening. It's not happening now, or I can't believe it's still happening. And I could fall under that, and when the civil rights movement, when we learned about it in class, like I would hear people say like, man, I would stand up to that injustice, if I was alive back then. The alley riots, even though I was too young for me to do anything, I always think, man, if I was there in that time, I would have done something. But now this is currently happening. It's still happening, and we have a say and a voice, and your actions behind this in social injustice, in all aspects, not just Black Lives Matter movement, not just defunding the police, but in our work environment, in your community, in your schools, everything, you know what I mean? Just be conscious of it and ask yourself these questions, like, I'm still learning it. I'm still fixing things about the way I was raised and the way I was conditioned. So I am consciously trying to change my way of thinking, and I'm not saying I was raised in like a hated household, where all this, but still it's our teachings from 0 through K, and even after. So it's like we can still make a difference. It's not too late. And to have that mindset, like I said, to just accept things is how they are because that's the way things have been our entire lives, I just don't think it's right. And I feel like we have a loud voice and we're going to make changes, you know, slowly but surely. Like I said, with that proposition that just passed in LA, you know, and I want to continue to be an activist. The proposition where felons weren't allowed to vote, even though they had done their time. When they got out of jail, they still couldn't vote. And I thought that was pretty crazy.
And now they're allowing felons to vote?
Yeah. So
nice.
This proposition that just took place in November, I voted for it. I think it was Proposition 5. And a lot of those people were the brown and black community, you know? So it's just things like that. Like, it's just being mindful of your community, your local propositions, and your local government, you know? So that's a solution, I would say. Just be an advocate and do your homework. And we're going to have our own opinions. And if you don't agree, that's fine. But as long as you're making a choice consciously for what's best for you, you know, not just saying, oh, well, my mom did it, so I'm going to do it, you know?
Yes, I want to also bring it back to like the individual level. Like, what can you do as a single person? Is there's this really cool quote. I don't know exactly who said it, but it's pretty famous. It's if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. And it's kind of a metaphor to saying, like, if you really want change in the world, you have to change yourself first, right? You have to lead by example. And one of those examples is, do you know, because as people, we complain a lot, right? And especially with the social media culture, everybody has an opinion. And if you don't agree with their opinion, they're going to attack you. And it's like, do you make your bed every single morning? You know, do you make a healthy breakfast for yourself every single morning? Are you giving your job, whatever it is, whether you're a janitor, a doctor, you know, a homeless advocate, whatever it is, are you giving your job 100 and like you're doing just the best you can do at that job? And I think for me, it's a huge turnoff when people complain or when people are constantly talking shit, because it's like, what solutions are you offering? You're just talking shit. You're just spewing negativity into the world. We have enough of that going around. I disengage. I don't engage with those people quickly just because I'm like, I got enough shit going on in my head, right? Like, I don't need to add your drama. And so I think it's good that we look at ourselves as individuals and say, like, are you being a good father? Are you being a good partner? Are you being a good employee? Are you, and when I say good, I mean, are you doing your part, right? And if you're making your bed every single morning, that's giving you a task, and if you're consistent, and humans, we're not consistent, right? With our diets, with our workouts, with our communication efforts, with our knowledge, whatever it is, we lack motivation and consistency. And to me, it's like, you know, a way that you can change the world is by holding yourself accountable to being your best self. Because if you're out here complaining and you want to overthrow the government, but you're not making your bed, you're not on top of your shit, you know, you're not on top of your health, you're not fulfilling your goals, however big or small, you really don't have a right to complain. Because if you're not going to be a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. And if you don't know the solution, if you're like, man, I'm not even ready to work on myself, fine, but don't add fuel to the fire. And offering those safe spaces for people to come in and talk is being aware that just because you think a certain way doesn't mean other people have to agree with you, and vice versa. Like Jessica was saying, it's never our intent, because who are we to tell someone, yo, you need to see it my way? I'm the right one, because whatever shit I made up in my head, you need to believe me. And it's like, you're not going to get people to jump on your side like that. You really will motivate people, like Jessica said, when you spark something and you just leave it there. The best professors that I ever had growing up were people who forced me to think for myself. They didn't tell me how to think. They just said yes, or, and then they offered an opposing idea, which made I mean, your neurons start firing off. You're like, oh shit, like, I didn't think about it that way. And that's it. You just walk away. You planted a seed. And it's not no one's responsibility, in my opinion, to change someone's behavior, to change someone's ideas, to change someone. Like, I just feel like that you have a lot of audacity if you think, well, I'm going to change the way that she thinks. You know, it's not your responsibility. But I think it is our responsibility to hold ourselves accountable. And if you're going to hate and talk shit and say, if you're following this person, don't follow me back, you're really just sending out more negativity. And you shouldn't fight fire with fire. You know, there two wrongs don't make a bad. Again, this is that's how we do it. That's not to say that there's no other effective ways to persuade others to change their mind or to think positively or to think more openly. I think is the biggest thing, is like just open yourself up and realize that no one really knows what's going on. I say this a lot because people who always want to debate or who are always constantly like attacking others, it's just like, why do you think you know what's going on? Like, that's always so funny to me, you know, like, why do you think you, out of everybody in the world, you're the one that has the right idea, you know, or has the right answer? It's like, everybody feels that way. And then so once you realize that and you make peace with that, everybody feels that they know the right answer, because that's our egos, right? And once you let go of that idea and you open up yourself to everybody's ideas, even people who think opposite of you, and then you come back to your intuition and you follow what, like, people know what's right or wrong. And what happened that day at the Capitol, it was groupthink. It was like the energy was so there for them. Trump started it. He's like, let's not do this. He's been saying like this is fraudulent, you know, everything has been so he's been hyping up his followers. And that energy can also be in the opposite effect. It can also be powerful if it's positive energy. And if he would have demonstrated positive leadership and said, you know what, it is what it is, we lost, let's hand over, you know, the power to so and so, whatever. Like, politics are crazy to me, but you know, that's the rule and that's how it should be. And he's like a sore loser, but he's been this way. He's been a child from the beginning, you know. So like, I didn't expect him to be, I don't know, to like get an awakening and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just lead by example and lead all of my followers, because he has a lot of followers, into a more positive way of thinking. And instead he's like, no, like he's throwing a tantrum like as an adult, like that's narcissism, you know. And it's just like, yeah, I don't even know, like,
Yeah.
what do you say to that?
I know. You really don't know. But yeah, we're just, again, trying to talk about this isolated incident that happened last Wednesday. Eloy's right. This episode isn't going to air until the 22nd. So we're talking about the incident that happened last Wednesday, the 6th. And yeah, we're just trying to deconstruct it, trying to understand it for ourselves, because still very shocked.
But the solutions, my favorite J. Cole quote is, okay, I don't know it off the top of my head now, but it's the one where he's just like, what good is taking over when you know what you're going to do? The only real revolution happens right in front of you. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, right inside of you. And it's true. I love that song. It's called High for Hours by J. Cole. And that song is pretty much the representation. Oh, I think it's a good representation personally of our like government systems, where it's just like, we're so attracted to control and power as humans. I think it's we're still evolving, you know, mentally, emotionally, because the need to want to control others and have power, to me, is, you know, because I kind of practice like the opposite, right? Of letting go and of being one with everything, and understanding that I am you and you are me. Even if you are a crazy racist person, you're still human. I see me and you. And I'm trying to practice that, because that's unconditional love to everybody. And that to me is the answer, you know, and it's a very hippie way. I can see how people are like, yeah, that's not how you get the job done. You know, I get it, but that's my way, right? And I follow my intuition. I follow how I feel. I get criticized so much about it. And the other thing is, follow your light. People know innately when something is right or wrong. Even people who are racist, and there's a lot of study on that too, when you close them off and get them away from their groupthink, you can get them to change their behavior and change their thoughts to more positive ones. Not to tell them stop being racist, but they'll just by themselves, it'll start to come out. Or when you tell someone, like if you're in a boss role and you have an issue that came up with an employee, and you tell them like, so tell me what happened, kind of like how Jessica was saying, you're really just there to, it's kind of like very therapy work, right? I don't know, we're not therapists, but I'm assuming they kind of just paint the picture, but you're the one that's really going through it. And the more you talk, the more you bring out, the human starts to come out. We're all capable and worthy of loving. And racism, is hatred towards someone based off of the color of their skin, the opposite of love. But they're capable. And I believe that. I believe that even the most, I don't know, hating of people. And when I come around them, it's just like, I want to give them love. I do. Like, and Jessica has helped me a lot with that too, because she's in therapy and she tells me a lot about boundaries and how we don't practice that as people. We don't practice healthy communications because they're going to get awkward and uncomfortable. And so we just stay away from them. And here we are not having these very important, necessary conversations because we let our ego take over instead of operating from a place of love and compassion. So it starts with you. The only real revolution starts right in front of you. Why do I keep saying that? Right inside of you.
I was about to check.
Right
I was like,
inside of
you
you.
kept said inside right now. You're just making your own
Inside.
lyric with it. Now you're like doing a Michael Scott, just making your own quote.
I'm plagiarizing. Yeah. I quoted J. Cole, but how did he say it? Cindy Barajas quoted J. Cole. Whatever.
You paraphrased it in your own words. I respect that.
Yeah.
Well, great topic. I told you it was going to be a good one.
I know. I wish we could have talked on it a little bit more soon, but maybe we'll work on that, on timing, huh?
Yeah.
But we just started back.
Yeah. We have a lot of interesting topics lined up this year, and we're going to delve into them deep into outside of our comfort zone for sure. Me and Cindy might not even be talking at the end of this season for sure.
We never know what's going to happen at the end of this season. Stay tuned.
And we're open to that.
I'm not, Jessica. I already put in my goals. We got to make it to season 4. So please align with my chakras. Just kidding. I would really love to know how you guys feel about this, or if there's any topics that you guys would like to for us to talk about. We also, I want to keep inviting people to be a part. There is a lot of cool people that we had on season 1, and we want to keep opening up the floor. So like, if you have something that you're like, I feel like I can probably be a part of your podcast and the direction you guys are going, hit us up on the DMs on our Instagram. And also, please follow us on YouTube. Share our information if this resonates with you, or if you feel like it might resonate with somebody you know. We're just trying to really get the word out there on kind of our version and how we explain human behavior and how we react to things that are going on in the world. So yeah, I hope you guys loved this topic. I don't know about loved, but I hope you guys found it a little entertaining, educational. Yeah. All right. We love you guys.
Hey.
Bye.
Primas out. Bye.